Hello, everyone. Welcome to one more episode of Dojo Live, connecting experts like you. And as ever, joining me from Los Angeles is my fellow teammate, Nearsoftian Tulio Siragusa, our chief strategist. So, hey, Tulio, it's a pleasure to have you here as ever.
Good afternoon. I'm so glad to be here, and I'm definitely glad not to be in the Midwest, although I feel for those people who are in deep, deep freezing weather.
Yeah, exactly. I hear you. Okay. And, well, for today's conversation, I would like to highlight the presence of Mr. Jonathan Chou, the CEO and founder of BeeNest, which is a platform that seeks to reinvent the home sharing economy by building a middleman-free, peer-to-peer network of hosts and guests on the decentralized web. So, Jonathan, it's a pleasure to have you here and an honor. Welcome to today's show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Oh, likewise. So are we, Jonathan. Okay, let's get it started. Started then. So, Jonathan, before we get into the topic of today's conversation, can you tell us a little bit about you, your background, and of course your company, which is BeeNest? Tell us a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think blockchain was very hot the last 2 years, and so we've been pretty much exploring how we could take that type of technology and bring it to a more mature industry like travel. So we've been in blockchain for a few years, and BNet has been around for about 2 years. And so that's been a really good learning curve. And before starting BNest, I used to work at Uber for about 2 years, and that was so we've had a lot of experience building out marketplaces. So all of it's just been a really good experience so far.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. So, and what about? Can you elaborate just a little bit more about BeeNest, how it came about, and how did the idea happen?
Yeah. So one of the main tenets of blockchain is to be able to remove the middleman.
Mm-hmm.
You can imagine peer-to-peer economies. The two largest ones are Uber and Airbnb, and that's kind of how we landed on seeing like, hey, can we take something like Airbnb and make it middleman free? And that's been a very interesting journey so far.
Thank you so much again. So, which you mentioned blockchain, of course, and that kind of leads me to today's topic, for the conversation, which is the rise of enterprise and blockchain in the travel industry. So I understand that blockchain is a hot thing nowadays. So tell us a little bit about why you chose this particular topic, the rise of enterprise and blockchain in the travel industry as a whole.
Yeah, so I think for us, when we look at the travel industry, we're always looking at like which type of technologies or which type of trends are kind of next up on the wave. And so the two major trends that we're seeing, at least because we're like right in the middle of it, and probably like these are two topics we care about more. First, travel companies are always trying to reinvent themselves by using new technology. And it just so happens that blockchain can really save these companies a lot of money depending on how they apply blockchain to their, I guess, current infrastructure. And the second is that I think there's a really large uptick of enterprise activity lately, and the fact that a lot of these companies are focused more on serving to businesses rather than consumers, and it's becoming a lot more of a stable revenue-driven model as opposed to like targeting the consumer all the way.
So I have a question, Jonathan. This is an interesting topic. Often when you talk about blockchain, there's the mention of no middleman, right? And then I think, well, isn't Airbnb and Uber the middleman? So there's always the middleman. But I'm curious, what gave birth to BeeNest? Like, what was that moment you was sitting around and say, I need to solve this problem? What is it that you went out to solve?
Yeah, so I think blockchain is supposed to kind of remove the middleman. So you can imagine like Uber and Airbnb are middlemen, and one of the main, I guess, use cases of blockchain would be like, all right, if we could take a really successful application such as Uber, or Airbnb, and take out the middleman and still have it function, then that would be amazing. So at some point we were like, yeah, we should probably try this, and that's definitely been a journey. And along that journey, we realized that like, hey, it is possible to kind of decentralize something like Airbnb, but is it sustainable in the fact that like, can revenue models actually work if you're not making any money? So for us, we then found kind of enterprise, and we realized we could kind of sustain our free cryptocurrency type marketplace as long as we kind of commercialize on the other side, which is more on the enterprise side.
Great. So, what does BNest do for the audience?
So
what are you selling or offering?
Yeah. So BeeNest essentially is like a go-to platform for small, medium-sized businesses to book their business travel, and it's all powered by blockchain technologies under the hood.
Cool. All right. So you mentioned something interesting before that made me think. The decentralized web, more focus on B2B. Is it safe to say that what blockchain could become is really the B2B internet? Is that the intention long term?
Well, I think B2B internet is definitely one type of way it can manifest. I would say that most people are a little bit more focused on like it getting to everyone, so it would definitely be more C2C. But I think in the interim, the early adopters will definitely be enterprises. These are people with the resources and the curiosity. And after the business have figured it out, it will probably spread to be more of a C2C play after this era, basically.
Okay, but so you're in a very fast-paced environment, right? The digital world is moving so fast. It used to be you could plan things 6 months now, 3 months now. Now it seems like it's weekly. But how do you go about maintaining a competitive edge related to your platform?
Yeah, well, I think for our platform, we're in between two industries, cryptocurrency and travel. So we constantly have to be at the top of both of them in order to continue going. I think the cool thing about the travel spot is we're kind of agnostic to whether we're like more like an Airbnb or more like a hotel. And for some reason, this seems to be like a very interesting curve because Airbnb is trying to figure out how to deal with hotels, and Expedia and Booking are very new to the home sharing vacation rentals market. So it gives us a good edge that we're like we've kind of been sitting in the middle of both, and we have a good aggregate supply from both. Whereas like neither of the two major like biggest booking platforms really have it as a clean experience yet.
All right, so you found a gap, and how's the adoption coming along for you 2 years in? How's that coming along?
Yeah, so I would say it's a little slower than expected for sure. We have about 20 to 50 bookings a month, so it's not bad, but we're definitely looking to turn up the lever. And I think the main focus was we were focused on too many places at once. I think we really need to limit it down and just go after like 3 or 4 cities. That would probably be the best. That's kind of our game plan going forward the next few months.
Are there any specific uses for either chatbots or AI, anything that you're doing that's enhancing the customer experience?
Yeah. Yeah, so for us right now, we're still getting to parity with the other OTAs right now. So we're not doing anything too crazy, but definitely AI and chatbots are something I'm really looking at right now. But it's definitely not something we are going to implement yet.
So how do you go about validating new ideas and features? Like, how do you prioritize? Is there methodologies you guys use? Can you walk us through a little bit of that?
Yeah, so I think most of it is just conversations with other, because we are building a B2B product. We constantly just talk to other businesses and see what they think, see what they use, and see if we can like kind of make our product like one step better than theirs.
Okay, so you have a user group that you kind of check in with to validate some ideas. That's awesome. Speaking of being in the B2B space, are you looking to sign up some partnerships? And if so, what would be ideal partners for you guys and why?
Yeah, for sure. So we're always looking for really good inventory on the home side, as well as hotel side. So if anyone has those, we'd love to talk and kind of help make those quality. And on the demand side, we're always looking for more SMBs between 20 to 200 people to kind of reach out and introduce our product.
So, okay, so you're 2 years in, the platform's out, you got bookings happening, you have some partnership, you're obviously trying to look to add more inventory. What's on the horizon in terms of your roadmap for the next 6 to 12 months? What's like keeping you up at night or keeping you excited?
Yeah, I would say just really making sure that we get the top 3 US cities down strong, as opposed to just like it's functional. Just really make sure that when you land in like San Francisco or New York, that this is like the perfect experience, accommodation experience that you could possibly get. Everything is very consistent, as opposed to just like all these inconsistencies in the market.
Do you have those cities down, or you're still kind of evaluating?
So right now we have about 50 properties in each of the cities, and we definitely want to get to like 500 before we feel like it's pretty saturated, I guess.
What are the cities you focused on?
San Francisco, New York, and LA.
Okay, good markets for sure. And how are you going about sort of, what made you pick these 3 cities? Is there something specific about them that stood out? And how did you go about doing that? Was there analytics involved, or just help us walk us through how you decided these 3 cities?
Yeah, I think the reasoning here is a little bit less logical. It's just that we feel like they're the 3 largest US cities, and that's kind of where we're starting first. Yeah, not as cool of an answer as probably we should be giving, but that's kind of it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, they're big cities. You can't go wrong. I was just curious if you guys were doing some kind of analytics on how you got there, but there's nothing like experience too. All right. So if you were an advisor to your own company, looking from the outside in, you're 2 years in, right? So what would be some of the advice you'd give yourself?
Yeah, I definitely say always focus aggressively and consistently on growing both sides of the marketplace. It's always like a make or break type thing, for sure.
And what keeps you up at night?
I would definitely say just always thinking of ways to keep the quality of our platform high, while also expanding very quickly and making sure that we get through as many of these partnerships as possible to kind of up our supply, while also maintaining the quality to be very high.
Okay. Is this your first startup, by the way? Or you've done some in the past?
This is my first startup.
Okay, so a lot of our audience are engineers, CTOs. Some of them work for well-established companies. Some of them are in mid-sized companies. And a lot of them are often sitting on the fence trying to kind of, do I get my feet wet in the startup world? Any words of advice that you might have in terms of anyone who's kind of sitting there thinking about it? Like, what was it for you to decide, I'm going to go down this path of building a startup and work, 40-hour days? Tell us about your path and what would you encourage the audience to do?
Yeah, I would say definitely it's a very large self-discovery journey. When you push yourself hard, you definitely realize a lot of new things about yourself and maybe your team members. So I would say, yeah, it's definitely, unless like, it's really hard to make ends meet or you have to take care of family or something, it's definitely worth trying once, just to see what happens when you're kind of like the one calling the shots for yourself.
And what's been some of the lessons but before I go into the next question, Carlos, is it time to open it up to the audience? I think we're halfway to that point.
Yeah, actually, yes. And actually, I have a comment, or she was commenting with me here internally on Slack, and
Great.
now she's sort of turning it into a question. Okay, so let's see. Jonathan, this is about, I have a question from one of our teammates, Sandra Vasquez. She's the one who does a lot of traveling, by the way. And she's asking specifically about adapting and pivoting in tech. So, and she says, as new technology evolves and new information is found in the hunt for product market, tech entrepreneurs need to adapt their technology and pivot their plans to better match their target consumer. In that sense, how do you accomplish this in a streamlined or seamless fashion?
in terms of the
Great.
funding, right?
Yes.
I think here it's just making sure that the market you're going after is big enough, so that if you do succeed, you have a big enough pie to basically justify building it and whatnot. And I would say first you need to convince yourself of that, and then work backwards to see like where you want to pivot. Because if you're thinking about the 3 to 5 to even longer year plan, and you work backwards, then you'll understand what should or should not be done for you to reach that plan.
Okay. Thank you so much. And that's Sandra. If you're watching, well, you have your answer. So back to you, Tulio.
Yeah, just if anybody's watching or anybody who wants to submit a question that is watching on Twitter at DojoLIVE, you know what to do. Submit your questions. We're happy to get them over to Jonathan. So I wanted to get an understanding of what your journey's been like as a first-time entrepreneur, first-time startup CEO. What are some of the lessons you've learned along the way through either some failures or successes? If you could share those, that would be fantastic. People always love to learn from other people's success or failures. Sometimes the failures are great stories too.
Yeah, I think the biggest learning curve was just learning how to fundraise. I think like engineers think like, all right, given X and Y, we're going to create Z. But investors kind of work backwards. They're more like, all right, I want Z. Tell me how you're going to do X and Y. So by default, they're kind of sorry, 1 second. Someone pressed on my phone. Oh, give me like 1 minute, please. Sorry.
Hey, there's always a first.
Yeah.
Quickly, Carlos, come up with a joke.
So random. Sorry. Got some mail or something.
We were
That's all right.
about to do a dog and pony show. Okay, go ahead.
Apologies. Yeah. So I think. Sorry. Where were we at?
We're asking about lessons learned from being
yeah.
a first-time entrepreneur, things that you've learned, how you're growing. Share your experience.
Yeah. So I think that's the largest part. Just thinking from an investor's point of view is like, engineers want to build something, but investors want a return. So just kind of bridging that gap has been a very valuable skill to learn. Because I feel like once you're able to raise money, you can kind of fill in a lot of the other blanks.
Yeah, it's interesting how they'll want you to show them the money before they give you the money. So
Yeah.
what was that like for you guys? I mean, did you, do you have like 3 months, 6 months sort of deliverables you're constantly working towards? Or where are you are you at a Series A? Are you seed money level? Where are you guys?
Yeah, so we're somewhere in between like seed and Series A because we raised money through an ICO, which is the cryptocurrency stuff, basically. So we're somewhere in between there, and I would say that usually we kind of pivot every like 2 to 3 months just to stay on top of the industry, make sure that we're iterating and continuing to serve the market in a niche way. So it's always changing, and overall the focus is still the same long term, but short term it definitely has a lot of shifts.
So that's a very agile way of working. Speaking of keeping up, or is there a methodology you guys have adopted in terms of how you build a product, how you code? Are you an agile shop, Scrum shop, or Kanban? What kind of methodology are you guys using?
Yeah, I think we use a standard agile. We think it fits our needs pretty good.
And tell us a little bit about your culture. What kind of culture you're creating? How do you typically attract engineers or employees? Any specific values you're kind of standing behind that you could share with those watching?
Yeah, so the three cultural values we share are being transparent, being accountable, and being curious. And those have been pretty good for us so far.
Tulio, I have another.
Go ahead. Yeah,
I'm sorry,
you have another question? Awesome.
Yeah, I have another question. And actually, hold on 1 second. Let me just go back to my Slack here. Given the question is coming from Misael, by the way, one of our guys here, also. He says, given the decentralized nature of the blockchain, where do items like stability and security rank in the travel technology industry?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, we're a hospitality company, so those are very high. And I would say that as a travel company, you really can't compromise a lot of these things, just because you're using cryptocurrency or just because you're using blockchain or something like that.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. There you have it, Nizael. So, okay, back to you, Tulio.
Yeah, it was just
You were,
those are great values in terms of cultural values. Can you expand on those a little bit? Like, what does accountability mean? Everybody's got a different version of that. I'm curious about your company's. What does that mean to you guys?
Yeah, I think the thing is we just because we're about 10 people, so everyone is doing one thing, and so it's just important to get that one thing done rather than make like have holes things fall through the holes.
So you guys are a little bit of self-managed. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, there's definitely a little bit of hierarchy, but we keep it minimal.
Cool. We're all for that, obviously, as a self-managed company ourselves. Okay, so we're coming up on time soon, but I'm curious to learn about what's the end goal here. You guys you got this gap that you've identified in the marketplace. Where do you see the opportunity once you capitalize on these three marketplaces? Is it a goal to go international? And why would I care as a consumer? Why does that matter to me?
Yeah, exactly. So I think it goes two ways. It's basically the consumer side, we're looking for mass adoption, and the enterprise side, we're looking for a sustainable business revenue model. So we've seen businesses to be a lot more open to, I guess, basically a fee. So that's been very helpful. So I would say it's both. It's like let's get the blockchain technology in everyone's hands on the B2C side and make a long, sustainable revenue model on the B2B side.
And speaking of the B2C experience, how much effort are you guys putting into the design or the interface that the consumer has? Are you noticing any challenges there in terms of adoption, or how are you addressing that?
Yeah, I think for the consumer, the most important component is just to feel safe, make sure that they're well taken care of. I'll say how you decide to do that on your website to create that type of feeling is probably the most important.
But the actual experience itself, beyond that, are you guys putting effort in design? Are you doing some design thinking? How do you guys address that?
In general, we've just built a pretty straightforward site, nothing too crazy to a point where we're thinking about it a lot. Maybe further down the line, we're thinking more in terms of functionality right now.
Right. Okay. So focusing on simplicity for now.
Yeah.
Obviously, you'll figure that out as you gain more traction and more consumers.
Yep.
Cool. What are some of the leapfrog moments you're most proud of so far, and what are some of those that you would like to accomplish? Any sort of like, I wish we could get there. What's on the horizon for you?
Yeah, I think just constantly hustling and getting more customers is always a great thing. And I think that's always something that we would wish happened sooner than later. So I think that's always been enjoyable to just go out and go for that.
How are you getting customers now? What's the process for you guys?
Yeah, we use a lot of social media like LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, these type of outreach channels. We find them to be very effective, as well as like email for sure.
So more like influential kind of marketing approaches.
Yeah, definitely. In person is always good too, but yeah, you can't always find the person you're trying to meet. So.
Okay, so how much of your time you spend doing administrative work versus actual? Are you an engineer by trade, by background?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I spend.
How's your time being split today as the CEO?
Yeah, so I spend about 10% of my time on administrative tasks. I spend about 20 to 30% just on general market trends, as well as like catching up with other investors and whatnot. And then usually I work for about 10 hours a day, just like one-on-one different types of meetings, and I'll try to go to a networking event after.
Sounds like the life of a startup CEO. All right. So, quick
Yeah.
question: if you had to do anything different again, Jonathan, what would that be? If you with what you know now, rewind 2 years ago, what would you do differently?
I would say in the beginning I would have focused more on fundraising rather than just doing it along with other tasks equally.
Okay, I'm sorry, it broke up for me. I'm
Oh,
not sure if it broke up for Carlos.
I
Can you?
Yes.
I would definitely prioritize fundraising because back then I prioritized it along with a lot of these other components equally, like product and tech and whatnot. But I would say right now fundraising has like become a lot more important than that, and I would say suggest people who are getting in to kind of go for that first.
Right. Okay. That's a pretty big task for a lot of CEOs, constantly making sure that the lifeline's coming into the company for sure. So what's next? You're going to focus on getting traction in these 3 cities. What are some of the immediate plans beyond that?
Yeah, I would say we'll definitely go to more cities and eventually go international.
Very cool. Can't think of another question right now, Carlos. You got something
Well,
for him?
not really. Well, the only thing left for me would be do you have any final words of wisdom for our audience, be it current or future one?
Well, I would say just keep trying to self-discover. I think it's always a learning experience for everyone, no matter where you are in life.
There you have it, folks.
Yeah.
Okay,
I, did- I
self-discovery.
did have I did have a follow up. Sorry, Carlos. We do have a couple of more minutes.
That's right.
You said curiosity was one of your tenets in your culture, and I'm curious, but intended. What does that mean to you guys?
Yeah,
Everybody's got a different definition. What does that mean to you guys?
yeah, I think one of the hard parts of a startup is it's pretty difficult. And if you're curious, then you'll learn how to solve those problems. But if you're very rigid, it'll be very, very hard for you to get through with some of these difficult challenges.
So, are you guys like actively reading stuff, participating at conferences? How do you feed that curiosity?
Definitely
Is there-
conferences and social media.
Okay, cool. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today. We wish you a lot of luck. It sounds like you've got plans for these 3 big cities, and you've cornered a potential gap in the marketplace. Let's keep checking in with you and stay in touch to see how this progresses. But thank you for taking the time today.
Yeah,
Carlos, you.
Well, the only thing left for me to do, Jonathan and Tulio, is simply to thank Jonathan for having been with us today. Jonathan, we really appreciate it, and I'm sure that the audience is going to find your insights and your input also very valuable. And with that being said, Jonathan, thanks again. A big heartfelt thank you goes out to you and to the audience. Let me just, before we let you go, let me just make a quick announcement. This is about next week, by the way. And next week we are, let's see who we're going to be speaking with. We're going to be speaking with Mr. Deepak Anchala, the founder and CEO at a company called Slintel. Slintel is a marketing automation tool. And I don't have the topic yet, but I'll have it soon. As soon as I have it, it's right there, going to be on the website and the DojoLIVE website. Again, it's dojo.nearsoft.com. That being said, Tulio, thank you as ever. And of course, our guest, Jonathan, thank you so much. We wish you the best of luck in your endeavors. And to our audience, thank you for watching. See you next time.
Cheers.